Well, good afternoon. You might be wondering why all of a sudden when we get back from the mission trip you hear "said I wasn't" over and over again. That's something we learned. Ken taught us in Bayou La Battery, and so it's a favorite of one of the mission teams, so that's why we continue to sing it, because we really like that one. We wanted to take this opportunity this afternoon and just share a little bit from our trip. And if you've got your Bibles with you, be turning to John chapter 13. We're going to read a little bit in there. We're going to read verses 1 through 17. I just want to kind of set our minds in the right direction towards service. John chapter 13, we're going to read verses 1 through 17. And the way that this evening is going to go, I'm going to give just a little bit of information, presentation about our trip. Then we're going to watch the slideshow. And then two of our teenagers are going to come up and kind of tell you a little bit about how the trip impacted them, what they learned, or an important story to them from the trip. And then Gunnar, our intern, is going to come up and do much the same. And then Ken will come back up and we'll wrap up as we normally do on Sunday night. So John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17, we know this story well. This is when Jesus washes his disciples' feet. And as we read this, I want you to kind of prepare your mind and focus it around service, because this is one of the most important things, one of the most important instructions and examples that Jesus gives to us. Excuse me. So I'll read verses 1 through 17. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he'd come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garment, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I'm doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." But Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "The one who is bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him. That was why he said, "Not all of you are clean." When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I've done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." That's an account of the Christ, the Savior, the Messiah of the world, stooping to do the job of a lowly servant. And he instructs his disciples, and he instructs us as well, to follow his example. Blessed are we if we know them and do these things. And I want that to kind of give us a good mindset for what we're about to hear, because the week of the mission trip, our mission team did exactly that. They followed Jesus' example, and they will be blessed for doing so. You know, when we went to Bayou La Battery, Alabama, we took a total of 35 people. We had 19 adults, 10 teenagers, 6 elementary-age children, 3 deacons, 2 ministers, 1 intern, 1 elder, and a partridge in a pear tree. And what our schedule looked like for the week, we left out on Saturday, and that was our travel day. It's only about an 8-hour drive. It's about 500 miles, but, you know, we have to make a lot of stops, and so it took us about 12, but we had a good time on the way there. They had dinner for us when we got there. And then on Sunday, we helped their congregation put on worship. And then later in the afternoon, we had kind of a sports day with some of the kids in the bayou. we went out and played kickball, captured the flag, and just had fun on Sunday afternoon. And then we had a short devotional that evening. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were our work days. We literally got up, ate breakfast, and we went out working all day, doing different jobs. We split up into teams and did various things in various locations throughout the week. Thursday, we spent most of the day at the beach to give our mission team a little bit of a reward for the work that they had put in. And then Friday, we returned home. And I want to just outline some of the jobs that we completed. And when we watch the slideshow, you're going to be able to visualize some of these jobs. But listen to the jobs that in just 3 working days, but a full week of being there, that we completed while we were there. At the Children's Place, we ripped out their old deck and replaced it with a metal frame and pressure-treated boards. We built and painted 5 picnic tables. We changed out the fluorescent bulbs for LED bulbs in their auditorium to help them save on costs. We replaced the broken and the chipped tile in various locations throughout their church building. We did landscaping at both properties that the church has there, the one with the church building and the one with the warehouse where they do their food distribution. We completely gutted and cleaned out the warehouse and the commercial kitchen that they have on the backside of the church building. And we cleaned and polished pews and cleaned out their auditorium. The teens and I spent most of the day on Tuesday giving away food and clothing to the local community. It's something that they do every week. We also helped them lead worship services throughout the week, Sunday and Wednesday. On Tuesday night, we put on an area-wide singing. We had members from the community come and sing with us, and we had about 60 or so people there. And Ken did an excellent job at that, and we got a lot of good comments from members of the community that were there. They just felt uplifted and encouraged by our time of worship together. We also noticed a need while we were there. One of their commercial refrigerators had gone out, so some of our men and ladies got on Facebook and found a cheap commercial fridge about 20 miles from the church building, so we were able to go and buy that, pick that up for them and bring it back. We also spent the week ministering to their youth, elementary age all the way up through high school, just hanging out with them, letting them be able to forget the cares of their life for just a week. And then, of course, a lot of the kids that come to the church there in Bayou La Battery don't have a ride to get there. So Miss Daphne, who's kind of the head of everything over there with Mr. Billy, they have to go and pick up the kids every single time the church meets. And they live in some pretty interesting locations. So we had some of our men help transport kids to and from services and activities. And we were able to do all of that in less than a week with the group that we took. Financially, the total cost of the trip was just under $10,000. Of course, they had to house us and feed us. We spent almost $2,000 on lumber for that deck, about $900 in the metal frame, bought a $300 fridge, costs of fuel. You want to imagine trying to get a bus with 4 trucks and 2 trailers, 500 miles and back. You can't imagine how much that fuel costs. T-shirts and things of that nature. The total cost was just under $10,000. And our mission trip budget for this trip alone is $2,000. So we were able to raise all of that money by just the congregation donating and giving us money for that. So we really appreciate that because we were able to put it to some very good use. And so at this time, I want to play the slideshow, and then we'll have a couple of our teenagers and our intern come up and tell you a little bit about their experience.
Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil why we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our very souls. Holy Spirit, come, invade us now. We are your church. We need your power in us. We seek your kingdom first. We hunger and we thirst. Refuse to waste our lives. For you're our joy and prize. To see the captives' hearts released, the hurt, the sick, the poor at peace. We lay down our lives for heaven's cause. We are church. We pray, revive this earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Unleash your kingdom's power. Reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty changing hearts. You made us for much more than this. Awake the kingdom seed in us. Fill us with the strength and love of Christ. We are your church. We are the hope on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. No sweeter name have I ever known. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. No sweeter name have I ever known. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. You are the light to my heart and my soul. You are the light to the darkness around me. You are the hope to the hopeless and broken. You are the only truth and the way. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. No sweeter name have I ever known. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. No sweeter name have I ever known. No sweeter name than the name of Jesus. You are the light to my heart and my soul. You are the light to the darkness around me. You are the hope to the hopeless and broken. You are the only truth and the way. You are the light to my heart and my soul. You are the light to the darkness around me. You are the hope to the hopeless and broken. You are the only truth and the way. Jesus, 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 Jesus. You are the light to my heart and my soul. You are the light to the darkness around me. You are the hope to the hopeless and broken. You are the only truth and the way. You are You are the only truth and the way. Hear the holy roar of God resound.
Hear the holy roar of God resound.
Watch the waters part before us now.
Watch the waters part before us now.
Come and see what He has done for us. Tell the world of His great love. Our God is a God who saves. Our God is a God who saves. Let God arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. Arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. His enemies will run for sure.
His enemies will run for sure.
The church will stand, she will endure.
The church will stand, she will endure.
He holds the keys of life, our Lord. Death has no sting, no final word. Our God is a God who saves. Our God is a God who saves. Let God arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. Arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. Our God is a God who saves. Our God is a God who saves. Our God.
I'm up here today to talk about the influence a group of people together bound by a common purpose can have. Because I split it into 3 parts. How much the people in Bayou La Battery need us, the impact we had, and how we personally grew closer together. Some things I heard while I was there is when their pastor can't preach for them, they have to have the 13 and 14-year-olds come up with something on the spot to preach on Sunday mornings. And seeing those kids when they were up there eating dinner with us, they had no shoes, oversized shirts, they were covered in dirt, but they were just happy that we were there. We got a lot done, like Tyler said. We built that massive deck in just 3 days. I know after Gunnar gave a lesson on Wednesday night, some of the Bayou kids said they understood and they were going to try to apply his lesson to their life. So we made a lasting impact, and that's what really matters. I know I personally grew. I got closer to people on the trip, and I have a lot more fun at youth group events now, and just got closer to everyone on that trip as a whole. It was a growing experience for the Bayou kids. They learned a lot from us, and it was a growing experience for everyone who went on the trip. And I just encourage anyone who didn't go this year to go next year, because you will be changed as a person.
For the last 2 years, we've been going to Bayou La Battery to serve the Henley Road Church of Christ. And every year, we've built a new relationship with either kids our age, younger, or older than us. Now, one of the things that I learned was no matter what the age of the kid is, they're still gonna look up to you. And I have 2 examples of this. First example is this little girl, about waist high to me. Her name was Paris, and she didn't live in the best she wasn't in the best living situation, and us being there just made her forget about what she had to go back home to. But through the whole trip, since the time we got off the bus to the time we got on to leave, she stuck to the hip of two people, Hannah Blaylock and Amber Rodriguez. She just stuck with those two for the whole entire trip. And not just them, she followed us. Everywhere we went, they were there. You turned a corner and she was right there with those two. Okay, another kid that I saw there, his name is Torn. Now, he was like Paris. He was with us every place we went, helping us, doing whatever he can. Okay, that's where I'll get. And most of the time, whenever he looked at us, whether it was Levi, Jacob, me, we were wearing a hat. And it just every time, I know me, everywhere I went, I wore a hat. And by the end of the trip, Canyon, Josh, and Steven. Was it Steven? Yeah, Steven had a hat. Canyon, Josh, and Steven had a hat. So most of the younger kids, too, also had a hat. So then we took another trip down to the t-shirt company, and Gunnar Hill bought Torn a $2 hat. I wasn't there to see it whenever he gave it to him, but I'm pretty sure that I saw it after. But his face was just the happiest face you could see. And almost later that day, he had to go back home. And he lives with Paris, which they're not in the best situation. And he looked up to us, and he had the biggest smile, I'm probably sure, because whenever he looked around and saw almost everybody else wearing a hat, he fit in. He's not in a place to where he's an outcast. He's with us, bonded. And so, that's just one of the things I learned, that no matter what age a kid is, they can just look up to you in any circumstance that they're in.
So this year was my first year to go on the mission trip. I was supposed to go last year, but I had nursing mess get in the way, and that was very much of a letdown. But so I was supposed to go last year and didn't get to go. I saw the slideshow. After that I thought, oh, that was pretty cool. They went, they helped some less fortunate people. It was a good experience. Good for them. That's what I thought it was. Going this year, it was an insane eye-opener. It was not woohoo, we built some stuff, we helped some poor people. That is not by any means what this trip was. One of the biggest things I learned on this trip was how much of a vessels we all are, everybody individually. One of the lessons that they mentioned, one of the lessons that I taught was a lesson on a Wednesday night, and the Miss Daphne, the lady that kind of heads up over there, had been talking to Tyler about what these kids might need to hear, so I kind of catered that towards them. And the lesson I gave was an eye-opener. It was a different experience. These kids are not as well-behaved as our kids, because our kids, they're great. But I've only taught to our kids, so going to a different group of kids, it was a big eye-opener. Our kids don't talk while I'm talking. They don't get disruptive, none of that. But while I was giving my Jonah lesson, there was distractions. There was people talking. I had a little group of teenagers from Himley, not our group, that were just talking, and it was disruptive. And then there was kitchen mess going on in the background. It just felt like I had put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this lesson, and it just kind of fell off. But that was not the case. After my lesson, I had 4 separate kids come up and talk to me, one of them saying that I really needed to hear that. And that person specifically had family issues going on back home. Another person said, I think I really understood that lesson. So we talked about it a little bit more, And this person was like, I think I understand it, and I think I know how to apply it. So he took benefit from that. Another one really opened up to me and said, I've been dealing with an addiction for a while, and this kid was only 14 years old, and the addiction that he had has started at age 8, and that was insane early age to start at. But he said he kind of opened that up to me after I gave that lesson, and I kind of talked to him about it, and he said, I know it's wrong, it's just hard to stop. And I said, I understand that. That's a lot of sin. So I talked to him a little bit about that and kind of elaborated on the lesson that I gave. But before I went into giving that lesson, I thought I was giving a lesson because Landmark told me to. I got hired as the intern. It was my job to give that lesson. That's why I'm giving a Wednesday night lesson. After that lesson, I realized that was not the case. I gave a lesson that those kids needed to hear. It wasn't a lesson because y'all told me to. It was a lesson because they needed to hear it. And those 4 kids coming and talking to me after was not, that was on their time. That was on their choosing. So it was obvious that whenever I was preaching God's word, he used me as a vessel to speak to those kids. And that became very apparent, and that became very apparent, and I was very glad about that. And as not just me as a vessel, but everybody on that trip was working as a vessel, whether it was Chad and Mark and Robert heading up the building aspects of it, or it was the group of women doing the cleaning and the organizing, or the men doing yard work, or the kids painting, or Ken leading songs and leading the singing night, or all of the teachers that taught. And I'm sure I'm missing other people, but everybody worked as a vessel in their own way. Everybody had their skill set. Everybody used their vessel in their own way. And it was a very eye-opener from what I thought it was. And I was texting Andy about it one day whenever we were at the trip, and it was the day after we finished the deck. And I said, the only thing I could think of is harmony. Everybody's working on all kinds of different topics, all kinds of different fields. Some people are mowing, building, painting, teaching, whatever they're doing, but we're all working for one common cause in different aspects, and it's just harmony. All of it is. And it was a big impact from what I thought it was whenever I didn't get to go. And if I had one big theme to give this little mission trip, is the song that we sing all the time, is that service to others is service to you. And that's really what describes this trip. And that's what really stood out to me.